I pulled over on the side of the road, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. Lily was at my apartment. She'd made dinner, the same thing she'd done before when I'd gotten mysteriously sick. That's really nice of you, Lily," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. "But I actually ate already. I'm not hungry." "You have to eat," she said, and there was something in her tone, something sharp and insistent. "I made it special, just for you." "I really can't. Maybe another time." "Where are you?" she asked again, more forceful now. "I'll wait." "I have to go, Lily. I'll call you later." I hung up before she could respond, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I sat there on the side of the road, watching cars pass by, trying to figure out what to do. I couldn't go home. I couldn't face her. Not yet. Not until I knew the truth. I called a friend who worked at the police department, someone I'd known since high school. "I need a favor," I said, "and I need you to not ask questions." "What kind of favor?" "I need you to look into something that happened when I was 10, an accident. I fell down the basement stairs." He was quiet for a moment. "Okay, give me a few hours." I waited in a coffee shop, drinking cup after cup until my hands stopped shaking from adrenaline and started shaking from caffeine. When my phone finally rang, I nearly jumped out of my seat. "I found something," my friend said, his voice tight. "There was a report filed. Your dad called it in as an accident, but the responding officer made notes. He suspected the sister. Said she showed no emotion, no concern. He recommended a psych evaluation, but your dad refused." "Is there anything else?" "Yeah, there were 2 other incidents on file. One when you were 13, you nearly drowned at the community pool, and another when you were 16, your car brakes failed. In both cases, your sister was present or had access." I felt like I was drowning right then, in that coffee shop surrounded by strangers sipping lattes and typing on laptops. My entire life had been a series of narrow escapes from someone who was supposed to love me. "What do I do?" I whispered. "You stay away from her and you let me handle this." But I couldn't stay away. I needed to confront her, to hear it from her own mouth. I needed to understand why. So against every instinct screaming at me to run, I drove back to my apartment. She was still there, sitting at my kitchen table with 2 plates of food set out, waiting. She looked up when I walked in, and for the first time in my life, I saw her really smile. Not the polite, practiced smile she usually wore, but something genuine and terrifying. "You came," she said. "I knew you would." "Why?" I asked, staying by the door, ready to run. "Why do you want to hurt me?" She tilted her head, studying me like I was a fascinating specimen. "Because you're the favorite. You've always been the favorite. Dad loved you more, Mom loved you more. Everyone always loved you more. So you tried to kill me multiple times?" "I tried," she said, almost conversational. "But you're resilient. That's what made it interesting. Every time you survived, I had to get more creative." "You're sick, Lily. You need help." She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "I've been to plenty of doctors. They all said the same things: antisocial personality disorder, lack of empathy, inability to form genuine attachments. But here's what they didn't understand. I don't want to be fixed. I like who I am." "Then why did you want me to come back? Why make dinner?" She gestured to the plates. "This is the last time. I'm done playing games. Dad's gone now. There's no one left to stop me. So I thought we could have one final meal together. Brother and sister. The way it should be." I looked at the food, at her calm expression, and understood. "You poisoned it." "Only 1 plate," she said, smiling wider. "Yours or mine, I'm not telling. It's a game. Like Russian roulette, but with dinner. We both eat and we see what happens. Doesn't that sound exciting?" "You're insane." "Maybe, but I'm also your sister. And didn't Dad make you promise to protect me, no matter what?" Those words, my father's last words, hung in the air between us. Protect your sister. I'd misunderstood so completely. He wasn't asking me to take care of her. He was warning me, begging me to guard myself against her. "I'm not eating that food, Lily." Her smile faded. "Then I guess the game's over." She stood up and I saw the knife in her hand, the one that had been hidden under the napkin on the table. "I didn't want it to be this way," she said, almost regretful. "I wanted it to be elegant. But if you won't play by the rules..." I ran. I burst through the door and ran faster than I'd ever run in my life, hearing her footsteps behind me, her breath, her laughter. I made it to my car, locked the doors, and called 911. watching as she stood in the parking lot, knife still in hand, watching me with that same cold, calculating expression. The police came. They arrested her. They found the poison in the food, found her journals detailing every attempt she'd made on my life, every failed plan, every moment of frustration when I survived. They found everything. But here's what haunts me. In her final journal entry, written the morning my father died, she'd written, "He told him to protect me. Even now, even knowing what I am, he's making sure I'm taken care of. Dad always loved me, just differently." She'd heard our father's words too, and in her broken mind she'd interpreted them as love, as proof that even in death, he was choosing her, asking me to devote my life to her. She hadn't understood that protection can mean different things to different people. I visit my father's grave sometimes. I stand there and tell him I understand now. I understand that his last words weren't a burden. They were a gift. He was giving me permission to survive, to prioritize myself, to break free from the obligation that had bound me to her. Protect your sister. But sometimes, protecting someone means protecting yourself from them. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes the hardest thing a father can do is admit that one child needs to be saved from the other. I don't know if Lily will ever understand why she is the way she is. I don't know if there was ever a moment when she could have been different, or if she was born broken in ways that no amount of love could fix. But I know this. I kept my promise to my father. I protected my sister from the worst thing in her life, herself. And in doing so, I finally learned to protect myself. The guilt comes in waves, the what-ifs, the questions about whether I could have done something differently. But then I remember her smile in that kitchen, the knife in her hand, and I know the truth. Some people can't be saved. Some darkness is too deep to reach. And recognizing that isn't giving up, it's survival. My father knew that. In his final moments, with his last breath, he tried to tell me. And maybe in the end, that was the greatest act of love he could have given me. Not the burden of caring for my sister, but the permission to finally put myself first. My father died with his hand wrapped around mine, his breath shallow and uneven, and his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that felt like he was trying to pour his entire soul into those final moments. "Protect your sister," he whispered, each word a struggle, each syllable carrying the weight of his entire life. "Promise me, no matter what, protect her." I promised. Of course I promised. What else could I do? He was dying, and I loved him more than anything in this world. So I held his hand tighter, nodded through my tears, and whispered back, "I will, Dad. I promise. I'll always protect her." 3 days later, we buried him on a cold October morning, the kind where the sky hangs low and gray and everything feels muted, like the world itself is mourning. My sister Lily stood beside me at the graveside, her face pale and expressionless. She didn't cry. She never cried. Even as a child, Lily had this strange, distant quality about her, like she was watching life from behind a glass wall. Never quite present, never quite there. After the funeral, I threw myself into the role my father had given me. I became Lily's protector, her guardian, her big brother who would shield her from anything that could hurt her. I helped her with the bills, made sure she had groceries, checked in on her every day. She lived alone in a small apartment across town, and though she rarely showed gratitude, I didn't mind. This was my promise, this was my purpose. But then strange things started happening. It began with little things. Lily would mention conversations we'd supposedly had, things I'd never said. She'd tell me about plans we'd made that I had no memory of. At first, I thought I was just stressed, grieving, forgetting things in the fog of loss. But then the incidents grew more troubling. One evening, I went to her apartment to drop off some food. The door was unlocked, which wasn't unusual. Lily was careless about things like that. I walked in, calling her name, and found her sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a wall covered in photographs. My photographs. Pictures of me from childhood, from high school, from last year. Some I recognized, others I'd never seen before. And in several of them, my face had been carefully, methodically scratched out. "Lily?" My voice cracked. "What is this?" She turned to me slowly, her expression blank. "You're early," she said, as if I'd just walked in on her doing dishes, not sitting in front of a shrine dedicated to erasing my face from existence. "What are these photos? Why is my face scratched out?" She stood up, smoothing her dress. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." But she just walked past me into her bedroom and closed the door. I stood there, surrounded by images of myself, defaced and destroyed, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't grief. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was something else entirely. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the photos, about Lily's blank expression, about all the small, strange moments over the years that I'd dismissed as quirks. The way she'd look at me sometimes with something cold and calculating in her eyes. The way she'd smile when I got hurt. Just slightly, just enough to notice if you were paying attention. I decided to talk to my aunt, my father's sister, the only other family we had left. She lived 2 hours away and I hadn't seen her since the funeral. When I called, she sounded surprised, then cautious. "I need to ask you about Lily," I said. There was a long pause. "What about her? Did Dad ever say anything to you about her, about me and her?" Another pause, longer this time. "Come see me," she finally said. "This isn't a conversation for the phone." I drove there the next morning, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. My aunt lived in a small cottage surrounded by pine trees, the kind of place that felt removed from the rest of the world. She opened the door before I could knock, her face drawn and worried. "Come in," she said. "Sit down. I'll make tea." We sat in her living room, and she handed me a cup of chamomile that I didn't drink. I just held it, waiting for her to speak. "Your father," she began, "loved you both so much, but Lily was always different, even as a baby. She didn't bond the way other children do. She didn't laugh, didn't respond to affection. Your parents took her to doctors, specialists, they ran tests. What did they find? Nothing conclusive, but as she got older, things happened. Small animals in the neighborhood would disappear. Your mother found them once behind the garage. Lily was 6 years old. I felt my stomach turn. What are you saying? I'm saying your father knew something was wrong, but he loved her. He refused to give up on her. And when you turned 10, there was an incident. Do you remember the summer you fell down the basement stairs?" I did remember. I'd been unconscious for hours, woke up in the hospital with a concussion and a broken arm. "I tripped," I said, though even as I said it, I realized I'd never actually remembered tripping. "You didn't trip," my aunt said quietly. "Your father found Lily at the top of the stairs. She was just standing there watching you lie at the bottom. And when he asked her what happened, she smiled and said, 'He fell.'" The room tilted. "No, that's not. Your father never told you because he didn't want you to be afraid of your own sister. He kept her close, monitored her, made sure she was never alone with you for too long. But he also believed that love could fix her, that if he just loved her enough, protected her enough, she'd change. And his last words, I could barely get them out. Protect your sister." My aunt nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He was protecting you, sweetheart. He was asking you to protect yourself from her. That's what he meant." I left my aunt's house in a daze, the world spinning around me. Everything I thought I knew had been a lie. My father's dying wish wasn't about keeping Lily safe. It was about keeping me safe from her. I drove home on autopilot, my mind racing. I thought about every moment with Lily, every strange interaction, every time I'd felt uneasy around her without knowing why. And then I remembered something else. A few weeks ago, Lily had insisted on making me dinner at her place. I'd felt sick afterward, violently ill for 2 days. The doctor said it was food poisoning, but what if it wasn't? What if... My phone rang. It was Lily. "Where are you?" she asked, her voice eerily calm. "Driving home, why?" "I'm at your place. I wanted to surprise you. I made dinner."